What's up YouTube? I'm Charmaine Jamil and welcome back to another video. This week's video is all about giving you 3 tips to help you move past a breakup. Now this is not just about a romantic breakup. These 3 tips can really help you with any type of separation that you're going through in your life right now. So that could be a friendship, or it could be romantic, or it could be a situationship. Either way. However, I really wanted to provide these 3 tips to you because sometimes you have feelings of a breakup where you feel like you're alone and you really don't know how to express those feelings and kind of recalibrate yourself to get yourself centered back on you. And so if you feel like that at this time, hopefully these 3 tips are going to be something for you to really think about, to help you to kind of create a plan for yourself to move forward. So here are my 3 tips. So the first tip is really to reset the focus on you. And tip number 2, go through a questioning process that really is going to be to guide your direction forward. And then tip number 3, set a standard. I went through this huge experience when I was 19 years old that really kind of changed how I thought about breakups. Now, example that I'm going to share with you is more a romantic relationship example, but still, like I said, you can use 3 tips for any situation where you feel you're going through some type of breakup. However, when I was 19 years old, that's when I was in college, and I experienced, I'll just say when I was in college or got to college, like many students, I had no real experience of the world, or really that was the first time being out on my own to try to figure out who is Charmaine at 19 years old. And so of course I met this guy when I was in college, and he definitely had a whole lot more experience than I did in life. And let's just say that he had a lot of different girlfriends. When I thought I was the only girlfriend, he had a lot of different girlfriends. And at that time, I was a sophomore in college, and I went to an HBCU, and I, at that time, was running to be the college queen. If you're familiar with Black college queens, you know, my college was no different. You had to, you know, like put in a lot of work. You had to campaign. It was a whole social thing. Well, I was in the midst of running for college queen. And during that time, I remember it dawned on me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been so busy. I haven't had time to spend with my boyfriend. And I remember going to his house, because I didn't know that you weren't supposed to just show up to a person's house unannounced, right? So I remember going to his house and saw 2 cars there. And, you know, naively kind of walking up, knocking on the door, and I'm like, okay, well, he's not answering. He was basically totally ignoring me. Until I saw him peep out the window. He saw it was me, I saw it was him, and he closed the blind. And I remember thinking, you've got to be kidding me. So I went to his back door, but on the back door, of course, there were no, you know, blinds or anything. I could visually see him, you know, with no clothes on, with this other girl with no clothes on. So I just inferred what was happening. And I about lost it because I was 19. I had never had a boyfriend that I had been intimate with except this person. And so I just felt all kind of feelings rushing. I felt betrayed. I just was frustrated. I was angry. I was sad. I was hurt. You name it on the feelings wheel, that was me. And I remember him ignoring me, and I kept saying to myself, oh, I'm going to get your attention. You can ignore me, you know, in the door, but I'm going to get your attention. So mind you, I'm a 19-year-old college student, which meant I had no money. I think I had like $5 in my checking account. I went to the closest store where I could buy a crate of eggs. I think I bought like a Sharpie marker. I just bought stuff to, you know, vandalize his place. And when I got back, I remember driving back from the store telling my friends about what I was going to do. And they were like, oh, girl, we're going to meet you there. So they came, I guess, you know, to view it. And all the while, this was pretty late in the night because this had gone on for the whole night. But this was probably maybe midnight. I had wrote a letter to him on his door. I had threw eggs. I vandalized his apartment. And I remember him coming to the door and saying, Charmaine, just stop and leave. Just stop and leave. And I just remember thinking, how could you waste my time? Like, how could you? It was all of those, how could you? You know, knowing all of what he knew about me and just how green I was. But it really was a situation of, he knew that I was naive. He knew that he could take advantage of me, and that is what he did. And I remember saying, okay, fine, I'll leave, but I'm going to take this with me. And what I took with me was, I broke off his windshield wiper. He only had one windshield wiper on his car. So I broke that windshield wiper off and took it with me. Well, that next day was the, Black college pageant that I had to be in. And I remember going through the pageant and I won. And I remember standing on stage, which that's something I shouldn't have even been thinking about. But I remember standing on stage as they were, placing the sash on me. And I was like, oh my God, I could lose all of this, because he could call the police and report that I had literally vandalized his entire apartment. And I will not be Miss So-and-so, anymore in that instant. I remember being scared that he was gonna call the cops on me, because, at that time he didn't. So, I just kind of kept going on my day. And I remember my car had broken down. So my parents took my car back, and my dad let me keep his shiny new burgundy Mustang, because, I had just won the pageant. Joyous time. He came to my apartment and broke off my windshield wipers, but they weren't my windshield wipers. They were the windshield wipers of my dad's brand new Mustang. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is about to be a really big thing. And so you can kind of see how that situation really changed my thought process of how I started moving through life dealing with breakups. Because at that time, for me, it was all about control. I had lost control, or didn't know that I could be in control of the situation to begin with, because no one had ever taught me that. And so when I'm talking about these 3 tips, which is tip number 1, really keep the focus on you. It is okay to state how you feel. If you feel overwhelmed, how did that person make you feel? Because once you start getting that out and making that known and putting that into the atmosphere, that is going to kind of help you release some of the stress that those feelings are kind of adding to your life. So it's always really good to state how you feel. Tip number 2 really deals with going through a questioning process to really guide you. Because a lot of times we think, you have no options. I'm supposed to stay with this person, or this is the only friend that I will ever have. So if you really keep the focus on you, making sure that you always stay the priority. What is the best decision for you to do? So once you go through this questioning process, really ask yourself questions like, what have I gained from this person? And you can set out a timeline. So in the first 2 months, what have you gained from this person? What have you lost from this person? How have you grown as a result of your life being connected to this person? Have you picked up, certain bad habits, bad traits? What type of, energy have you been feeling going through this person? Is a lot of frustration coming anytime you're connected to this person? Is a lot of sadness coming into your life as you're connected to this person? Because it's really important to go through this questioning process for yourself and really start to write it down and see what the list looks like. You can visually see what has been coming into your life as a result of you being connected to this person. And so really looking at those 2 lists is really what's going to be the guide of how you set a standard for yourself, which is tip number 3. Even at 19 years old, I knew that that was a lesson that I would never forget, because I was so scared that everything was going to be taken away from me on the first day. I was Miss, Black College Queen. Because of that, I remember saying, Charmaine, you have to have better control. Not control of, are you going to vandalize a person's, house or car or apartment? Again, No. Better control of myself. How far do I want to go in certain relationships? Because for me, I think it was more or less that was my first time being intimate with a person, and they basically disregarded my feelings. So how can I set a standard of being more in control of not giving this person so much credit or so much space to disregard me or ignore me or have me in, set feelings? So you can do this in a number of ways. My thing at that particular time was, okay, let it die. Let the whole feelings of the relationship die. Remove anything that's going to remind you of, for me, it was remove anything that's going to remind you of this person. I think at the time, because I had this great opportunity that was really on the horizon, that I really did not want to be connected to that negativity anymore, it was really easy for me to let it die. So you have to set whatever standard and see what other opportunities are available to you. How can you get out to really recalibrate yourself to center it on you? It might be something where you set some type of reminder for yourself that this is not for me because of, and you have a full list of why this is not for you. So it's really important to always make sure those questions are centered on you. Anytime you're going through a breakup, you're really trying to find, what is the center of me? What am I supposed to be doing? How do I allow this to be a subtitle in my story, but not allowing it to be the main header? This is all I am. This was all I was worth. This was all my life was supposed to be. And another thing that really helped me to set a standard of having control in my life is because those friends that called me that basically were sideline viewers to this whole situation of me vandalizing this guy's apartment, when one of those friends had a family function, I went to it, and her dad pulled me aside, basically told me about myself, because my friend had basically shared the situation at the dinner table with her family, and it was a laughing situation to them. And once I had that experience of this grown man pulling me to the side and telling me something that he really shouldn't have had no business knowing, because my friend basically betrayed me and shared that information. But I remember how I felt in that situation. And it all stemmed back to control. I have control of this situation. So how can I be a lot more strategic as I'm moving forward? Now, I am way better than I'm 9 years old than I was at 19 years old. But the lesson that I learned at that time was about control and what is my standard. And I really take that in a lot of situations. If a situation has happened and I don't really, I can't really align with the feelings that I have in that certain situation, I always say, okay, Charmaine, what is your new standard of how you're going to control the next time? Because you do have control, you do have options, and you always want to make sure that you're exploring the options that you have that's going to benefit you the best. Because what should be the priority in your life is you. If you make yourself a priority in your life, make sure that you are good, then anything that stems from you is going to be benefit from that. But if you start trying to pour from an empty cup, it can really go downhill from there. So I really wish you all the best of luck. If this is, something you're going through, just know you have options. Look for those options, look for those opportunities, and make sure you keep the focus on you. Those are my 3 tips. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to like and don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.